Valentine's Day surprise on Valentine's Day. My bestie convinced me to go out and scavenge for gifts on the street. Turns out, I actually found a man outside a bar. Dead drunk. I looped my arms around his neck and giggled. Since no one wants you, handsome, I guess you're mine now. Before I could even finish my sentence, I hurled right there. Him. In the deafening silence, I looked up. Mr. President. The man was actually my devastatingly handsome big boss. In the hotel room, Chin Yan emerged stone-faced from the bathroom, his shirt half-buttoned. I swallowed hard, stiff with terror, bowing and scraping an apology. Mr. Chin, I'm so sorry. I really didn't mean to. Chin Yan glanced at me, leisurely fastening his last button. Oh, so you're saying I meant to? No. I absolutely didn't mean it that way. Chin Yan's gaze grew increasingly dangerous. My legs trembled. I was this close to dropping to my knees and swearing my loyalty. Chin Yan, the big boss of my company, the top young talent in Linjiang City, also notoriously known in the business world for his bad temper and difficult personality. From the day I joined the company, his various legends struck fear into everyone's hearts. So even though everyone said he was godlike in appearance, a lowly peon like me never dared to even glance his way. During big meetings, I wouldn't dare look directly at him. And now, not only did I look, I also, just thinking about how I drunkenly clung to this man, begging for hugs, made me want to commit seppuku on the spot. And right then, the man opposite me spoke slowly. If you have nothing to say, then I will. My whole body stiffened and I quickly apologized again. I really didn't recognize you, sir. Glancing up, I timidly asked what he was doing there last night. Chin Yan looked down, his expression unreadable. I paused, suddenly remembering last night was Valentine's Day, and realization dawned. Mr. Chin got dumped last night. Chin Yan's face noticeably darkened. He stared at me without a word. I froze and quickly covered my mouth. Shoot, was this something you could just blurt out? Sensing the increasingly creepy atmosphere, I quickly groveled. So, what does Mr. Chin suggest? Chin Yan stared at me for a moment, then finally said he wouldn't make things too difficult for me. Here's the deal. I need a new personal assistant. You'll do it. We'll talk again when I'm satisfied. Maybe you should make things difficult for me. Everyone knew this guy's temper was atrocious, and he changed secretaries as often as he changed his socks. Making me his assistant? That was practically a death sentence. Sensing my reluctance, Chin Yan narrowed his eyes and smiled. Or do you prefer another way to compensate me? Sensing trouble, I smiled knowingly and declined Chin Yan's second proposal. His smile deepened, telling me I could speak up if I wasn't satisfied. I shook my head repeatedly, saying I was satisfied. Of course I was satisfied. Completely satisfied. 5-star praise. As soon as the words left my mouth, the air around us suddenly stilled. Fragments of memory flashed through my mind and I froze completely. Apparently, last night I'd also spouted nonsense in front of this man, saying that such a handsome guy surely deserved a 5-star review on skill. Looking up, I saw Chin Yan's lips curl slightly as he let out a cold snort. Hey! I nearly buried my head in the floor. Looking up again, Chin Yan had already started putting on his suit jacket as if no one else was there. His lean waist was fully visible with every movement. In an instant, my mind exploded into fireworks. I remembered how, when he carried me back last night, I'd been clinging to that very waist and back. Just then, a ringtone suddenly blared from near his leg. I hastily looked away, only to realize it was my phone. Chin Yan glanced at me and tossed the phone over from a distance. I fumbled to catch it but accidentally hit the speakerphone button. Immediately, my bestie's sly, cackling voice came through. Wen Yunning. Spill it. Did you get a boyfriend? What, your little wolf dog ditched you already? I was dumbstruck. Desperately covering the mic, I hissed at her to shut up, wanting to strangle that troublesome friend. I shot a pained glance at Chin Yan, but he remained expressionless, turning back to continue dressing. Mortified and guilty, I mumbled an apology and fled with my phone. After meeting up with my bestie, I lifelessly told her about the Chin Yan situation. She expressed sympathy, but her mouth was grinning from ear to ear. I'm dying laughing here. That guy wasn't bad looking at all. So what made you throw up on him? I was so mad I wanted to punch her. saying it was all her fault for dragging me out to get drunk. She'd said even if there were no men, there'd be plenty of couples breaking up on Valentine's Day. Maybe we could find a Cartier box in the trash or something and get rich overnight. Well, look at the result. I didn't find any Cartier. I actually found a man instead. And he was my freaking boss. More importantly, the boss seemed to have just been dumped. If this news ever got out, wouldn't he want my head? Thinking about how I'd have to dance attendance on him from now on, my life felt hopeless. Oh, come on. Maybe this is fate. My bestie winked at me, telling me to work hard. Him getting dumped is perfect, isn't it? You slip right into that vacancy, and bam, you're the CEO's wife. I told her to forget it. That kind of thing wasn't something just anyone could pull off. Ignoring her nonsense, I went home to wallow in sorrow. My mom noticed I hadn't come home last night, and stared at me for a long time, scanning me like an X-ray. I said, "What are you looking at?" "I worked overtime with the boss last night." "Mum." "Oh, I see." My heart skipped a guilty beat, and I quickly hid in my room. Stomach feels so empty, heart feels so tired. Tomorrow's going to be so hard approximately. Early the next morning, I officially became Chin Yan's personal secretary, responsible for organizing his documents, conveying verbal instructions, and handling all sorts of personal schedule matters. I thought with his temper, he'd be super picky about work. But, unexpectedly, he was even more patient than I was during this time. Since I was new, there was one business task I wasn't very skilled at yet. The document I made still felt off somehow. While I was worrying, he suddenly stood behind me. Haven't dealt with this aspect before. The man's faint, elegant cologne scent wafted over. I subconsciously froze, not daring to move. Why, yes. The person training me hasn't taught me this part yet. Before I could finish, my breath caught in my throat. Chin Yan leaned over and grabbed the mouse near my hand, saying, "I'll teach you." For an instant, my ears buzzed and my brain crashed. When I came to, I heard Chin Yan ask by my ear, "Got it?" The corner of my mouth twitched and I nodded with a completely blank mind. "Like hell you do." Chin Yan straightened up, glanced at me, and asked what I'd remembered. My face flushed bright red. I stammered, unable to say anything coherent. Chin Yan clicked his tongue lightly, but didn't lose his temper. Instead, he leaned down and taught me again. "And now?" My heart raced, face flushed, and I nodded randomly. He raised an eyebrow and said, "Still don't remember?" Then he made a move to lean in again. I freaked out, shaking my head frantically, saying, "Thank you, Mr. Chin. I remember now. I really do." Who the hell would dare not remember? That would be suicidal. Only then did Chin Yan leave, satisfied, a faint, almost imperceptible smile flickering at the corner of his mouth as he turned. Over the next couple of days, Chin Yan taught me quite a few more things, on and off. While learning with my heart in my mouth, I also wondered inwardly. Who the hell spread the rumor that he had a bad temper? This is what they call a bad temper. Or maybe he thought I was too stupid, and was just fattening me up for the kill. When yawning. Hearing Chin Yan's voice, I snapped to attention like a soldier. The corner of his mouth twitched almost imperceptibly, as he asked me how long the upcoming meeting would be, and if I ordered lunch. The meeting should be about 2 hours. As for lunch, what would you like to eat? I'll order it now. Chin Yan glanced at me and casually said a name. Order yours, too. Eat with me, then we're going out. Oh, okay. I nodded in agreement, but inwardly I was groaning. No lunch break again. Ever since becoming his secretary, except for not sleeping together at night, we were practically glued together the rest of the time. Thinking this, my heart stirred, and certain inappropriate thoughts started creeping into my mind again. How annoying. My face heated up, and I quickly busied myself with work. Behind me, Chin Yan slowly formed a question mark. After the meeting ended and we returned, the food had already arrived. I was about to take it into Chin Yan's office when he glanced at the one on my desk. That one's mine. I was stunned, then speechless. Come on. They're the same. Aren't they? What, does the CEO also think food stolen from others tastes better? But Chin Yan ignored me, took that meal, and went back to his office. I rolled my eyes and sat back down. Looking down, however, I noticed my portion had no scallions written on it. I froze on the spot. Whoa, this one is mine. Wait, but how did he know I don't eat scallions? The longer I spent with Chin Yan, the more I realized he wasn't nearly as scary as the rumors made him out to be. First, he didn't lose his temper without reason. Second, he wasn't completely unwilling to give his subordinates a chance. And third, his pickiness wasn't unfounded. Things that had been through his repeated scrutiny always turned out pretty well. After getting to know him better, I started to feel a bit of genuine respect for him. When a former colleague heard this, she looked at me like I was crazy, saying I must have been seduced by Chin Yan's good looks. My face reddened and I said no way. Everything I said was true. Mr. Chin has never been harsh with me, and he even personally taught me how to do the documents. Personally taught you? My colleague looked at me with an indescribable expression, then pointed behind me, asking what I thought that was. I turned around and saw a new female employee anxiously saying something to Chin Yan. And Chin Yan stood there expressionless, not even raising an eyebrow. After a moment, he raised his hand towards the manager on the other side, gesturing for him to go over and guide the new employee. Then he left, his demeanor distant. I pressed my lips together, speechless. My colleague immediately teased. TSK, looks like Mr. Chin is only different with you, huh? I was shocked and told her not to say things like that carelessly. My colleague laughed heartily and patted my shoulder with a meaningful look. Because of her words, I was unsettled for a long time, until Chin Yan took me out to meet a client. As luck would have it, it was a partner I dealt with back when I was in the sales department. This guy's name was Zhao Hongjian. Around 40, very slick, but also very tricky in business dealings, exploiting loopholes and language more than once to my disadvantage. The moment I saw him, my smile dropped. He seemed to recognize me too. Seeing that I was now by Chin Yan's side, his expression shifted slightly. After we sat down, he first tried to cozy up to Chin Yan. Then suddenly he turned the topic to me. This is Miss Wen, right? I think we've met before. I nodded, forcing a tight smile. But he was overly familiar, grabbing my hand and shaking it, saying our previous cooperation was great, and praising that everyone under Chin Yan was top-notch. I shook my hand irritably to break free. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw Chin Yan watching us, his expression unpleasant. Seems President Zhao's interest in my secretary is greater than his interest in cooperating with me. At these words, Zhao Hongjian's face instantly changed. He hastily let go of my hand, saying of course not. Mr. Chin misunderstands, Mr. Chin misunderstands. He forced a smile and said a bunch of nice things, finally testing the waters with Chin Yan. So, about this contract? Why talk to me, President Zhao? Just talk to my secretary. Zhao Hongjian's face completely changed this time. Mr. Chin is joking. Who said I was joking? Chin Yan's gaze, devoid of warmth, swept over him, saying word by word, I told you to talk to my secretary. If it doesn't pass with her, this cooperation is off. Understand? Zhao Hongjian was stunned for a moment, then stiffly looked towards me. I hadn't expected Chin Yan to give me so much face, and my small, well, not so small, chest puffed up with pride. Once the documents were brought over, I smiled tightly and said, President Zhao, shall we begin then? Zhao Hongjian's expression was grim, but he maintained his politeness and nodded. Because the materials involved foreign products, a part of the document was entirely in English. Zhao Hongjian's English wasn't good. I grinned inwardly, thinking, here's my chance. Then I started translating, deliberately making several mistakes, and even bumping up the commission percentage in the contract. Zhao Hongjian understood half of it, listening with sweat beading on his forehead. Finally, with a green face, he called a halt, saying he wanted to find a translator. I closed the contract, feigning displeasure. What's the matter, President Zhao? Do you have a problem with our contract? If so, maybe we should put this cooperation on hold. No, that's not what I meant. Zhao Hongjian waved his hands repeatedly, saying of course the contract was fine. It was just that he couldn't understand. Seeing his face flushed red, looking so defeated, I could barely hold back my laughter. Old jerk, look at you now. After this back and forth, the contract was finally signed. Zhao Hongjian left humiliated, and I was gleeful, overjoyed. Even back in the car, I was still humming happily. That happy about it? Chin Yan asked. I paused, suddenly remembering the big boss was sitting right next to me. I quickly toned it down. Ahem. Not really. I'm just happy Mr. Jin secured another cooperation. Chin Yan let out an unreadable snort. I glanced at him secretly and asked if he wasn't afraid I might have messed it up just now. Mess what up? Your major is translation, isn't it? I was taken aback and asked him how he knew. Although I'd majored in translation, I'd never actually done any related work since joining the company. Chin Yan's gaze towards the window seemed to falter for a moment. After half a second, he said, I know my own people, don't I? I thought, oh, that makes sense. Given his position, he'd naturally need to check the background of people around him. Seems like it wasn't surprising. He knew about Zhao Hongjian causing trouble for the company, and me. Either. After a moment, I sincerely thanked him. Thank you, Mr. Chin, for giving me face today. And thank you for patiently teaching me before. But Chin Yan turned to look at me. That's it. I blinked, puzzled. His deep eyes flickered, seeming a bit displeased as he looked away. You're no different from those business partners. All talk and no substance. I was startled for a moment before I realized he was complaining that my thanks lacked sincerity. Somehow finding it funny, I said Mr. Chin could tell me directly what he wanted. And if I tell you, you'll give it to me. I paused, inexplicably frozen. Could give you what? What do you think when yawning? Chin Yan looked at me steadily, then suddenly leaned in. Just as my mind went completely blank. Chin Yan reached past me, grabbed something from the storage compartment beside me, and then sat back in his seat. Never mind. Whatever you have, I have. What you don't have, I also have. What could I possibly want from you? After saying this, he raised an eyebrow. Drive already. What are you spacing out for? I stiffly turned back around and gritted my molars hard. This dog of a man did that on purpose, didn't he? Focus on the road when you're driving. Yes, Mr. Chin. Got it, Mr. Chin. I hurriedly responded, a breath of frustration stuck in my chest. When I got off work that evening, Chin Yan answered a phone call and suddenly changed one item on tomorrow's schedule. Chin Yan glanced at me lightly. We're going to the golf course to discuss business tomorrow. I paused, not answering right away. What's wrong? Chin Yan's brow furrowed slightly. I snapped back to reality and waved my hand, saying it was nothing. When I got home, my mum was watching TV in the living room. She glanced at me, and her hand, mid-crack on a sunflower seed, suddenly paused. She asked me what was wrong. Confused, I asked her back what was wrong with me. My mom looked disdainful. The past couple of days you've come back all goofy and grinning, like you'd found money. Today you come back with a long face. What, thinking about your ex-boyfriend again? Why on earth would I be thinking about him? I denied it instinctively, but then couldn't help but pause after saying it. Then I emphasized again that I really wasn't. Just a bit tired from work. I'm going to my room now. According to my mom, I'm naturally insecure and very dependent in relationships. Still having a hard time moving on. From head to toe, inside and out. We just weren't right for each other. His family was well off, and he'd been outstanding since childhood. His perspective on things was different too. So when he irritably threw down his golf club on the course and said we weren't right for each other, I didn't argue. He had just graduated from university then, but was already handling things adeptly at a large corporation. I had to suspend my studies to work and earn money. By the time I returned to school, the gap between Zhou Chengyu and me was more than just one level. He wasn't willing to wait for me. He thought he was excellent, and shouldn't have to settle for less. I couldn't keep up with his pace, becoming more and more anxious, more and more insecure. That day on the golf course, he said he would teach me. Said most people in high society knew how to play, and learning would make it easier to do business later. As if angry at me for not keeping up, for being beneath him. After that, we broke up amicably and never saw each other again. It made it so I could never find someone from my own class. And even years later, I still had a shadow over golf courses. Just as my head was starting to ache from thinking, my phone suddenly buzzed with 2 messages. I opened them and couldn't help but freeze. The second read. I'll teach you tomorrow. Guaranteed to make you learn. Looking at the messages on my screen, I suddenly felt an indescribable feeling in my heart. My mind, which had been filled with Zhou Qingyu's face, was now firmly pushed aside by someone else. His stern face, his frowning face when reprimanding people, the way he looked when working seriously, and the way he deliberately teased when teaching me things. Especially since this person and I had already been within negative distance of each other. Cough. I shook my head, trying to calm myself. It's cold. Put on an extra blanket. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt the blood rushing to my head again. This man, how could he be so good at this? Thanks for your concern, Mr. Chin. There's heating at home, not cold. Oh, but you kick off your blankets. Realization dawned and my face flushed bright red. Feeling utterly mortified, I pressed my face against my phone and pretended to be dead. But then my phone dinged again. It was Chin Yan sending a goodnight. I looked at those simple 2 words, but my heart was in complete turmoil. I had dreams all night long. Scared, I wanted to get away, but he grabbed my wrist tightly. Wen Yunning, where do you think you're going? Drawn by his gaze, I couldn't help but feel my will gradually submit. As if bewitched, I unconsciously moved closer to him, finally kissing his lips. In an instant, the world spun, and I sank into an intensely ambiguous entanglement. Every breath carried a tremor. But just then, a bad feeling suddenly washed over me. I woke up. The next day, heading to the golf course with Chin Yan, I didn't dare look him in the eye the whole way there. Last night's dream had been too real. Seeing his cool, aloof appearance now felt like a sin just by association. We arrived quickly. 2 business partners were already waiting. Chin Yan didn't rest. He immediately went over to exchange pleasantries. Watching him, mature and steady, talking eloquently, I suddenly felt that sense of disparity again. Saying nothing, I stood to the side with a polite smile. Unexpectedly, Chin Yan suddenly turned his head at that moment. This is Secretary Wen, capable and steady. I hope you bosses will guide her well in our future cooperation. The bosses smiled and nodded at me in greeting. I almost didn't react in time, quickly lowering my head to return the greeting. Shortly after, they entered the golf course, but Chin Yan walked over to me. Did you look at the stuff I sent you last night? I stiffened and dryly said I had. He raised an eyebrow. Doesn't matter if you didn't. I'll teach you. With that, he directly led me onto the course. My heart was flustered, so nervous I didn't know where to put my hands. My posture incredibly stiff. He didn't hold back either, immediately pointing out several of my flaws. Still not right. Want me to teach you? Looking up into his deep eyes, I swallowed hard and said maybe forget it. But the next second, he leaned right in. When he firmly held my hand, I instantly held my breath. He practically enveloped me. A faint cologne scent mixed with his sharp aura immediately engulfed me. I closed my eyes and cursed inwardly. Damn. Wen Yunning. The man's voice suddenly sounded in my ear. I jolted. Huh? Never seen a student taught personally by the boss who still daydreams. Focus. He held my hand again and began earnestly explaining the nuances of playing golf. I listened in a daze, but still managed to remember a fair bit. As soon as he stopped, I quickly broke free from his encirclement. Thank you, Mr. Chin. I understand now. Understand it all. Then try it. Let me see. I glanced at him, thinking this guy was secretly wicked. He knew perfectly well there was no way I could learn in such a short time. But meeting the man's innocent gaze, I had no choice but to steel myself and try. Sure enough, I played terribly. Seeing this, Chin Yan immediately smiled and raised his hand to teach me again. Startled, I instantly jumped 5 meters away, waving my hands, thanking Mr. Chin. But really, no need. Chin Yan's smile deepened, and finally he said, Okay then. I'll go accompany those bosses then. Please do. Chin Yan nodded. Before leaving, he fixed me with a stare and said he'd be back to check on me later. I was already numb, nodding along perfunctorily. After he left, I indeed had no other thoughts and threw myself into practice. Unexpectedly, after multiple attempts, I seemed to have actually grasped the technique. Just as I was getting happy, I looked up and saw someone I never expected to see. Instantly, my high spirits came crashing down. Zhou Chengyu. Yunning? What are you doing here? Zhou Chengyu's eyes lit up faintly. He said excitedly that he never expected to run into me here. Glancing at the club in my hand, Guilt flashed across his face. You learned this? I'm sorry, Yuning, Before he could finish, a hand suddenly landed on my shoulder. Yes, she learned it. I taught her. Qin Yan, one arm around my shoulder, looked at Zhou Chengyu, his expression icy. Zhou Chengyu was stunned for a moment, then looked at me. I never expected this kind of situation to arise and was momentarily speechless. But Qin Yan quickly continued. General Manager of Shifeng Real Estate. Zhou Chengyu, correct? Zhou Chengyu was even more surprised and looked at me again. I had no choice but to hastily explain. Qin Yan, President of Ruisheng Group. My boss. Zhou Chengyu's eyes flickered upon hearing this. He smiled and said, So it's President Qin. Yuning, I didn't expect you to be at Ruisheng now. Yes, she's with me now. Qin Yan interrupted calmly. The smile on Zhou Chengyu's lips instantly stiffened. I couldn't help but widen my eyes and look at the man beside me. Mortified, my toes curling inwardly. Look at this CEO declaration. Truly my boss. President Qin still has clients to attend to, so we'll take our leave first. Wait. I started to pull Qin Yan away, but Zhou Chengyu stopped us. He smiled and said, Why leave in such a hurry? Since we rarely meet, shouldn't we chat a bit longer? The corner of my mouth stiffened. Chat about what? Chat about how he looked down on me and dumped me back then. But Zhou Chengyu seemed intent on rubbing salt in my wound, deliberately pointing at the club in my hand. Back when we were together, you hadn't learned this yet. I wonder how well you play now. How about we play a round? Before I could refuse, Qin Yan let out a light snort and said, Sure. Then I watched as the two exchanged fake smiles and a few pleasantries before squaring off. I was dumbfounded, my mind in turmoil. Leaving aside who was actually better in a match between these two. If they started swinging clubs at each other on the spot, should I help or call the police? Well, Qin Yan was on my side after all, so I'd probably help him. That's what I thought. Soon, the match began. To save time, they only decided to play par 3 holes. 4 holes total, counting strokes. Zhou Chengyu started first. 1 shot onto the green. 2 putts into the hole. Judging by various standards, it was quite good, a proper show of force. After Zhou Chengyu holed out, he even applauded lightly and slowly, as if victory was already assured. But when he actually started playing, he missed the ball 3 times in a row. The 4th time, he finally hit it, but when he swung, the ball fell off the tee. I stared, wide-eyed. I never expected him to have so many accidents. Seeing his expression worsen, I was afraid this CEO might get upset and tear up the course. Fortunately, on the next shot, he finally hit the ball successfully. The result? The ball went out of bounds. For an instant, I saw Qin Yan's face turn green. My heart was in my throat, but I couldn't help but let out a stifled laugh. Wow, what a spectacular show. No, seriously, what's going on? He shouldn't be at this level. Just as I was puzzling over it, I saw Qin Yan narrow his eyes and look at me. Wen Yuning, come here. Hearing the dangerous tone in Qin Yan's voice, I quickly suppressed my laughter and walked over. Before I could think of an excuse to comfort him, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me close. Very funny? The distance suddenly closing, my heartbeat quickened. No, not funny. Then what were you laughing at? Qin Yan stared at me. I swallowed hard, let out a dry chuckle and said he must have misheard. I was just cheering you on. I absolutely did not mean to mock you. Qin Yan looked at me steadily for a few seconds, then let go. Since you laughed, I'll have to get serious now. He gripped his club tightly, turned slightly, and a light smile curled on his lips. Watch closely. I paused, my heart thumping hard. So hot, but also pretty handsome. Turning my head, I saw Zhou Chengyu staring fixedly in our direction, his expression awful, as if he'd been toyed with. I raised an eyebrow and the pent-up frustration in my heart suddenly vanished. Suddenly I understood that Qin Yan did this on purpose. Deliberately making me laugh, deliberately provoking him. Looking at Qin Yan again, I laughed and shouted, Go, Mr. Qin. I don't know what Zhou Chengyu's reaction was. I only know that the rest of the match was a foregone conclusion. Qin Yan's skill wasn't superior to Zhou Chengyu's, but he was much more proficient and cleverer. After a round of golf, the difference was clear. As we were leaving the course, Zhou Chengyu glanced at me a few more times and said, "Let's keep in touch next time." I ignored him, giving a perfunctory smile. On the way back to the company, I asked Qin Yan how he knew about Zhou Chengyu. "Nothing special." Qin Yan looked away, saying calmly that he'd met him occasionally in business circles. This Zhou Chengyu was only recently transferred here from elsewhere. Apparently he's somewhat capable. Just as I was about to respond, he unexpectedly added, "But it's just some low-level capability." Qin Yan glanced at me and said, "Your taste back then was pretty much that level." I paused, eyes widening. "You know about my relationship with him?" Qin Yan's gaze faltered. He coughed lightly and said he'd figured it out. With that look in his eyes, any man could tell what it meant. I said, "Oh," wondering what kind of look Zhou Chengyu had given me. Before I could figure it out, Qin Yan suddenly spoke again. "Stay away from people like that in the future. A complete waste." I couldn't help but smile and nodded in agreement. Yes, he's a waste. You're the best. From now on, I'll definitely stick close to you, ready to serve you through thick and thin." After I finished speaking, Qin Yan was silent for a long time. I turned my head to look and was instantly stunned. Why did he suddenly blush? After we parted that day, scenes with Qin Yan kept popping into my mind. We were all adults. Not sensing anything would be either pretending to be dumb or genuinely stupid. He seemed just a little bit different with me. Thinking about it made me even more agitated. I knew clearly that I wasn't from the same class as him, and I also knew I shouldn't have this class consciousness. But I couldn't control this way of thinking, especially since he really was far more outstanding than me, and his family background was something I could never reach. In this situation, even if I had feelings, I didn't dare take a step forward. My bestie Xia Qing was the first to notice something was off. She smirked and asked if something was going on. "You've been spacing out a lot lately, and when you do, you secretly blush. Fess up. Did something happen with that President Qin?" "What nonsense are you talking about?" she scoffed, still embarrassed. "You weren't this reserved when you dragged the guy to the hotel that night." "Xia Qingqing, are you never gonna let that go? Do you want me to call your ex-boyfriend and have a nice chat about that night?" Xia Qing's face changed and she quickly forced a smile, begging for mercy. "Baby, nothing happened between me and that male model that night. Don't go spreading rumors." I glared at her and asked how things were with her own ex, the one she couldn't seem to get over. She hemmed and hawed, unwilling to say, and instead turned the topic back to me. "Ning, just tell me straight. Do you have feelings or not? If you really do, just get together with him. Why are you stuck?" She looked at me like I was a lost cause, saying only by taking the first step could I forget that jerk Zhou Chengyu. I felt inexplicably guilty and didn't tell her I'd run into Zhou Chengyu not long ago. Seeing me silent, my bestie thought I was annoyed with her for talking too much, and changed her tune. "I'm not forcing you to be with him. I'm just saying, you can try it out first. If he's no good, we'll find the next one. Say bye-bye, find a better guy." Seeing her getting more and more ridiculous, I quickly stopped her, saying I got it. As soon as break time was over, I immediately ushered her out of the company building. "Go play with your ex-boyfriend. I need to work." Xie Qing snorted and left, cursing under her breath. I went back upstairs. Just then, a document needed to be delivered to the 9th floor, so I took it along the way. Unexpectedly, as soon as I arrived on the floor and went in, I heard people gossiping about me. If you ask me, Wen Yining is definitely involved with the president somehow. You could tell from when she was suddenly transferred to be his secretary. Sigh, so jealous. Gotta say, that young lady is pretty good looking. She does stand well with the president. PFFT, I think you're all just too idle. How high is the president's status? He'll definitely look for someone from a similar background in the future. I think so too. So this current relationship is probably just playing around ambiguously. Or maybe keeping her. Before the words faded, a figure walked straight out from inside. The voices of the few people abruptly stopped. I also stood frozen on the spot. It was Qin Yan. "Mr. Qin." Facing the sudden appearance of Qin Yan, the chatting employees' faces changed in unison, bowing and scraping, admitting their fault, saying they shouldn't gossip. Qin Yan had his back to me. I couldn't see his expression. I only heard him say in a deep voice, "You're right. You shouldn't gossip. Break time is over now." The company hired you to work, not to gossip. Besides, invading someone's privacy and damaging their reputation are both against the law. At these words, the few turned ashen, their heads drooping even lower. But Chin Yan wasn't done with them yet, continuing. Wen Yunning is my personal secretary. If any of you have questions, you can ask me now. And no, sorry Mr. Chim. It's all our fault. We shouldn't gossip about others. Don't dare to ask? Chin Yan's tone sank slightly, saying, Then let me say it for you. Aren't you just curious about what my private relationship with her is? Hearing this, I unconsciously tightened my grip on the items in my hand. Then I heard Chin Yan say solemnly, Wen Yunning and I are just ordinary superiors and subordinates. There's no kept relationship, nor are we a couple. With a thud, the items in my hand fell to the floor. Sorry for the interruption. Flustered, I picked up the things I'd dropped and turned to leave. But Chin Yan called out from behind me. Wait. I wasn't finished. I clenched my jaw tight. Great. Adding insult to injury, are we? Chin Yan, I misjudged you. You're such a do. Wen Yunning and I are indeed not a couple. But I am working hard to move in that direction. After Chin Yan finished speaking, the surroundings suddenly fell silent. I could feel everyone's gaze locked on me, and with great astonishment. I was dumbfounded too, unable to utter a single word. Until after a long moment, Chin Yan walked over to me. Glancing at the documents in my hand, he slowly spoke. What's this? Waiting for me to help you deliver this? I can help you, but first agree to have dinner with me tonight. Chin Yan's tone held a smile, his gaze deep and fixed on me. My face flushed bright red. Unable to take it anymore, I shoved the documents haphazardly at someone else, grabbed Chin Yan, and immediately fled. Only when we reached the break room did I let him go. Catching my breath, Chin Yan watched me the whole time, then suddenly said, Did I scare you? Then let me say it again. I looked up blankly, asking what. Then I heard him say, word by word, Wen Yunning, I am working hard to develop a romantic relationship with you. I like you. Chin Yan's sudden confession startled me badly. In the end, I basically fled in panic. I never imagined someone of his status would be so straightforward about anything. But he said it. Seriously and earnestly, he said he liked me, that he wanted to pursue me. He also said this was absolutely not a fleeting whim for me. Thinking of the sincere look in his eyes, I shyly burrowed into my blanket and squirmed. Just as I was lost in youthful romantic fantasies, an unfamiliar call suddenly came in. Seeing the name, Zhou Chengyu, on the screen, my smile instantly dropped. After a brief mental struggle, I finally answered. Yunning, got a minute? Can we meet? Sorry, I'm about to get ready for bed now, I said, glancing at the clock pointing to 9. But the person on the other end quickly chuckled. Tomorrow after work then. We'll talk about tomorrow when it comes. You know, I'm Mr. Chin's personal secretary now. I can't leave until he's done. It's okay, I'll wait for you. Zhou Chengyu showed no sign of backing down. After a few more words, he hung up. I didn't dwell on it. If my mood could still be affected by him before, now it was purely calm, as still water. I no longer cared about Zhou Chengyu one way or another. What I cared about was, well, not really. Thinking about what Chin Yan had said to me during the day, my heart fluttered again. He said I was actually quite capable, that I shouldn't keep underestimating myself, and should try more opportunities. Then he gave me a business card, saying it was for the boss of another company. He said this guy cooperated with many foreign businesses, and if I wanted, I could try my luck over there. Only by seizing opportunities could I possibly go further. Thinking this, I turned over and sat up, taking out the business card. What disappointed me was that the other boss didn't buy into me at all, and rejected me in just a few words. I wasn't particularly down about it, just found it a bit puzzling. After all, I was introduced by my boss Chin, and yet he was so ungracious. Not dwelling on it, I soon fell into a deep sleep. Seeing Chin Yan again the next day, I always felt a bit embarrassed. My mind was empty all day. Nothing stuck. Unexpectedly, just as I got off work in the evening, I saw a Bentley parked at the entrance. Zhou Chengyu stood right beside it. Seeing me, he immediately broke into a smile and walked over holding a bouquet of flowers. Yunning. I wished I could just turn and leave right then. But I was also afraid it would make me seem like I hadn't moved on. I forced a small smile, nodded at him, but didn't take the flowers. About 10 minutes later, Zhou Chengyu took me to a Western restaurant. Just like before, he immediately ordered 2 meals, saying they were the restaurant's signature dishes. He didn't bother asking for my opinion at all. I didn't mind either. I smiled politely and asked him what he wanted to see me about. Sensing my distance, he smiled bitterly. Are we? This distant now, just like this? I thought to myself, what else did you expect? Yining, I want to apologize to you one more time. Zhou Chengyu showed a self-blaming expression, saying it was all his fault back then. I was only focused on climbing higher, thinking that only by raising my status could I give you a better future. I never thought I'd end up losing you instead. Me. Yuck, meaning the breakup wasn't his fault. After we separated, I couldn't sleep night after night, constantly reflecting on myself. But at that time, I happened to be at a critical point in my career. I had no choice but to numb myself with work. Zhou Chengyu looked at me, his eyes full of emotion. So even though new people came along, I never accepted anyone else. Me. Meaning he was very much in demand. I finally moved on later and started trying new relationships. But only after actually dating other girls did I realize some people can never be replaced. Zhou Chengyu's tone was pained, saying those girls either only cared about his money and never showed him consideration, or they were too stupid, completely unable to understand him. Me. Oh. Meaning he dated several, got bored, found them unsuitable and broke up. Zhou Chengyu suddenly reached for my hand while speaking, but just then the server arrived with our food. I dodged him in a flash and took the meal. A bit embarrassed, Zhou Chengyu forced a smile and said, "Let me." Then he took my plate and started cutting it. You always hated cutting this. I always did it for you. I paused silent for a moment. Zhou Chengyu's mind worked well. He knew I had a soft heart, and started playing the sympathy card. In no time, he pushed the cut steak towards me. Want me to pour the black pepper sauce on it, or? Before he could finish, a figure whooshed down right next to me. Pour what? Don't you know she's allergic to black pepper sauce? The suddenly appearing Qin Yan said coldly, simultaneously pushing the steak aside. Zhou Chengyu was stunned. I was dumbfounded. Am I allergic to black pepper sauce? Finished eating? There's some work I need your help arranging. Qin Yan looked at me. The corner of my eye twitched. What do you think I thought? But Zhou Chengyu across from me subtly darkened his expression. President Qin is being a bit too domineering, aren't you? It's already after work and you're still making Yunning work for you. Doesn't seem appropriate, does it? Qin Yan ignored him, only saying calmly to me, overtime pay. 10,000 an hour. Any problem? No problem. Is there an upper limit on overtime hours? If not, I can work until tomorrow morning. I shut up. Hesitating even half a second would be an insult to every working person. The corner of Qin Yan's mouth twitched slightly. Then he said, "That's up to you." Then he glanced at Zhou Chengyu with a faint smile and said, "Sorry, President Zhou. She's my person. I'll be taking her now." With that, he directly led me away. Not until we were in the car did I emerge from the joy of 10,000 an hour overtime. Grinning stupidly and asking Qin Yan what we needed to do. He looked at me sideways, silent for a moment. I scratched my head awkwardly, finally sensing that this guy seemed angry. Oh my, the CEO is jealous. But somehow I was a bit happy about it. After thinking, I still added an explanation. I said I hadn't agreed to meet Zhou Chengyu last night, but he came to find me himself, and it was hard to refuse again. It would make me look petty. Qin Yan hummed in acknowledgement, his expression improving slightly. I couldn't help but smile. Then I asked him what the work arrangements were next. Who knew this guy would be silent for a long time? Then finally squeeze out that he hadn't eaten yet. I was both amused and exasperated and said, "All right, then let's go eat." Starting the car, I drove towards a nearby night market. The atmosphere on the road was unusually relaxed. Casually, I mentioned the boss of the company he'd introduced me to yesterday. Maybe I lack experience. He didn't accept me. Qin Yan frowned upon hearing this as if very displeased. I'll call him another day and ask him what's more important, ability or experience. I turned to look at him, silent. What? Qin Yan asked. I pressed my lips together, a bit embarrassed. Can't you ask him now, Mr. Qin? Chin Yan. It was clear he was embarrassed. Just as I was thinking maybe forget it, I saw him take out his phone and start dialing. A few seconds later, the call connected. Hey, old Chin. What's up? Chin Yan. Why did you reject Wen Yunning? Other side. Huh? Didn't you ask me to reject her? You said you couldn't bear to let her come to my place. So you wanted me to pretend and turn her down. Chin Yan hung up with a click. Dead silence inside the car. A long moment passed before I spoke, my smile tight. Nothing you want to say, Mr. Chin? Chin Yan held his forehead, lightly hissing. Sorry, my fault. Then he asked me to pull over for a moment. We happened to be near the night market already, so I found a place to park, and we walked in together. Chin Yan's expression was somewhat subtle. After a moment, he looked at me seriously and said, what he said was right. I have selfish motives. I really didn't want you to go there. Under the orange streetlight, the color of his eyes lightened a few shades, making them seem even softer, yet even more sincere. My heartbeat suddenly slowed a few beats, but each beat was clear and powerful, as if telling me I'm done for. I've fallen in love. After a long moment, I snapped back to reality. I let out but didn't know what to say. But Chin Yan suddenly called my name. Then he reached out and pulled me into his arms. Wen Yunning, it's been 3 days. When are you going to think it over and give me a chance? The moment Chin Yan hugged me, my first reaction was, it's only been 3 days. Weren't you supposed to pursue me properly? 3 days is enough? When I came to my senses, I realized I was getting way ahead of myself. I stiffly pushed Chin Yan away, saying I'd think about it when I got home. Okay. Chin Yan didn't push further, but his gaze grew even more intense. After that, we strolled through the night market together. I thought you might be a bit picky about the food, but he wasn't as aloof as I'd imagined at all. We talked a lot. He said he was just an ordinary person too. He only wore a mask because he had to. Putting on airs all day was tiring enough, so he didn't want to do it in front of me. I smiled, vaguely feeling like the distance between us had closed a little more. As we were about to part, I casually asked when he'd first noticed me. Chin Yan glanced at me and said, a long time ago. Probably around the time you first joined the company. My mouth fell open in shock. I looked at him, speechless. No way. He'd been noticing me since that early, so why didn't he approach me sooner? Suddenly, I remembered that Valentine's Day night and froze. He had just been dumped that night. So when did he start liking me? Or had he been interested in me while still dating someone else? Thinking this, my mood plummeted instantly. Chin Yan asked what was wrong. Clutching my skewer, I didn't answer. He seemed momentarily stunned, his tone becoming even gentler. Did I say something wrong just now? I apologize. I haven't dated much, so I'm not good with words. Hearing this, I immediately flared up. How can you be like this? You just got dumped on Valentine's Day, and now you're telling me you haven't dated much. The words were out before I could regret them. Why bother? Even if we couldn't be together, Chin Yan had treated me well enough. No need to make things ugly. But the next second, Chin Yan narrowed his eyes, reached out, and pinched my cheek. Wen Yunning, did I ever say I got dumped that night? I never expected that Chin Yan had come looking for me specifically on Valentine's Day. He found out where I lived, went over with flowers, only to find I'd already left. So he tracked me down to the bar. The result was seeing me and my bestie stumble out drunk, yelling about scavenging for gifts. Exhausted, he sat on the steps not far from the trash can. A rose bouquet lay beside him. I spotted those roses and rushed straight over. What happened after that? You can imagine. Wen Yunning. Chin Yan stared at me, gritting his teeth. No more than 3 drinks from now on. I grinned sheepishly, too embarrassed to argue. That night at home, I asked my mom if she'd seen Chin Yan on Valentine's Day, but my brother popped his head out of his room, saying he had. Tisk, you saw him and didn't think to tell me sooner. When Pei looked innocent, I thought it was just some delivery guy with the wrong door. It couldn't have been for you, could it, sis? I snapped. Why couldn't it be for me? No way, no way. Was that guy blind? Wen Pei, do you want to die? As soon as I got mad, Wen Pei immediately shrank back into his room. My parents chuckled from the sidelines, not intervening. I sighed and headed for my room, but they called me back. Yunning, are you in a relationship? My dad blinked. My mom, cracking sunflower seeds nearby, said, no need to ask. It's written all over her face. I clicked my tongue and asked what they were getting at. But my dad suddenly smiled. Nothing. Just happy to see you like this. Dad's finally not your burden anymore. I was stunned, my eyes instantly stinging. After my dad's stroke that year, half his body had needed constant rehabilitation. It would have been a lie to say it hadn't weighed the family down. As the eldest daughter, I'd naturally shouldered more. Especially after the blow from Zhou Chengyu, I'd become increasingly insecure. Always feeling burdened, afraid to openly accept kindness from others. Now, that knot in my heart seemed to be slowly loosening. Forcing back tears, I strode over and hugged my parents. They were never my burden. They were my lifelong pride and my anchor. Maybe because so much had happened during the day, I started dreaming again that night. In the dream, Qin Yan was still good to me, but I remained uneasy. I felt like there was still some hurdle I hadn't crossed. Finally, just as Qin Yan and I were preparing to get married, a woman with an unclear face burst in. She wept piteously, clinging to Qin Yan's sleeve, and then Qin Yan's heart softened. I panicked, shouting that she was faking it. She was a manipulative bitch. That Qin Yan couldn't hear me, his eyes only on the woman. I wanted to cry too, to make him feel sorry for me. But try as I might, I couldn't squeeze out a single tear. In the end, I could only sit pitifully on the ground, watching Qin Yan leave with her. Bastard, that fickle dog of a man. I was still cursing until the moment I woke up. Opening my eyes, I saw Wen Pei lying by my bed, his eyes wide. Sis, who's this dog Qin? Did he bully you? Speechless, I roared at him to get lost. Every Sunday he came back just to annoy me. If he didn't drive me crazy, he'd consider himself a dutiful son. Because of that dream, I was in a bad mood all the way to work. And of course, the more you want an outlet, the harder it is to find one. Qin Yan wasn't at the company today. Something about personal business. My pent-up frustration was about to explode. Last night, all sweet talk, telling me to consider giving him a chance. Today, he's nowhere to be seen. Forcing down my anger, I tried to focus on work. Men are like clothes. Career is like a limb. Can't lose sight of priorities. But just as I was delivering a document to a downstairs department, I overheard people gossiping about Qin Yan. Mr. Qin's childhood sweetheart is coming back. I wonder what position she'll land. Definitely not low level. I hear she's very capable. Childhood sweetheart? That's his first love. Haven't you noticed he's stayed away from women ever since she left? Haha. Don't say that. He won't be happy if he hears. Hearing this, my heart sank. It couldn't be this cliché. Qin Yan actually had a first love. And she was coming back now. My internal frustration hit its peak. But then my former colleague, the one who teased me before, unexpectedly appeared behind me. She'd probably heard the gossip too. She patted my shoulder and told me not to overthink it. Mr. Qin isn't like that. I glanced at her, my sunken heart lifting slightly. But before I could even mentally prepare myself, reality slapped me hard across the face. That afternoon, Zhou Chengyu called. His words implied that he'd seen Qin Yan at the airport, picking up a woman and acting intimate. Yunning, I have no reason to lie to you. As Zhou Chengyu spoke, he conveniently sent me a photo. In the photo, Qin Yan was holding luggage in one hand and had his other arm around a woman's arm. The posture wasn't overly intimate, but it was far from innocent either. I considered the possibility that it might be a relative. But Zhou Chengyu thoroughly crushed that thought. He said, I checked. This woman's name is Yan Jing. On the surface, she's just a friend of Qin Yan's. No other relationship. In that instant, I felt an indescribable disappointment. The kind of disappointment when you're lifted high and cherished, only to be brutally dropped. Qin Yan really isn't as simple as you imagine. Zhou Chengyu sighed and said, Yunning, I know you're smart and independent. You'd never let emotions sway you. So I'm just worried you might feel hurt inside. I'm coming to find you now. Let's go out and clear your head. No need. I decisively refused Zhou Chengyu, saying I wasn't hurt inside. Your plan backfired, Zhou Chengyu. I'm not even with Qin Yan yet. Also, please stop contacting me. We're done. Even if I get hurt or abandoned by someone else, I won't come back to you. Some people, once missed, are gone forever. With that, I hung up. But the moment I turned around, I felt so wronged I could cry. Thinking back on what Chin Yan had said and done to me, I felt even more like a fool who'd been toyed with. Soon after work, I went out and saw my bestie waiting by the roadside. The grievance I'd been suppressing welled up again. Sniffling, I walked over. Asked her why she'd come. Her expression was complicated. She said Zhou Chengyu had called her. Then she started cursing Chin Yan, calling him a jerk. That evening, to comfort me, she took me to a bar for drinks. We'd just reached the third bottle when my bestie's phone suddenly rang. After answering and coming back, her expression changed, and she cursed Chin Yan even more harshly. My already anxious heart grew even more unsettled. I asked what now. She gave me a deep look and asked if I really wanted to know. Tell me. Chin Yan took that woman to a hotel. One sentence and I was plunged straight into hell. It took me a long moment to come back to myself. Ning, I'm only going to ask you this once. If you still care about that Chin Yan, I'll take you to the hotel right now, to confront him face to face. If it's a misunderstanding, we'll clear it up. If it's not, I'll mess him up for you. Looking at my bestie's furious face, I wiped my mouth and stood up. Let's go. Following the address Zhou Chenyu gave us, my bestie and I quickly found the place. We unexpectedly happened to catch Chin Yan just as he was entering. We watched him walk to the front desk with a woman, watched him calmly book a room, and finally watched him accompany the woman upstairs. The last shred of faith in my heart completely crumbled. My bestie immediately wanted to rush over, but I grabbed her arm. Forget it. It's pointless now. At this moment, I truly understood what it meant to be utterly heartbroken. All the anger, grievance, and unwillingness couldn't compare to a 10,000th of the pain I felt now. Chin Yan's actions made me even doubt if I was truly unworthy of love. Why else would it have to be me? Yunning. Seeing the worry in my bestie's eyes, I forced myself to stay calm and said I was fine. Let's go back. We haven't finished our drinks yet. With that, I turned to leave, but just then my phone rang. Caller ID. Big Boss Chin Yan. My breath caught, my heart pounding violently. Hello. Not asleep yet? Chin Yan's tone was as usual, asking what I was doing. I couldn't imagine what was going through his head making this call now. I said coldly, nothing much. Chin Yan paused, then suddenly said there was something he needed to confess to me. I closed my eyes and said, no need. If it's work-related, I'm off duty now, Mr. Chin. Telling me won't help. If it's personal, Mr. Chin and I have no relationship. Even less reason for you to tell me. Wait. Chin Yan finally sensed something was wrong. He asked what was the matter, and where I was now. I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say anymore. Without another word, I hung up. But just as I'd composed myself and was about to leave the hotel with my bestie, an urgent voice came from behind. Wen Yunning. That voice. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. I pressed my lips tightly together, grabbed my bestie, and started to walk away. But Chin Yan caught up in just a few steps, his expression dark as he asked what I was doing here. What are you yelling about? Does it concern you? My bestie stood in front of me, glaring at him, asking why he wasn't upstairs being lovey-dovey with his little sweetheart, and what he was doing down here. Chin Yan closed his eyes and said, You've misunderstood. Misunderstood my ass. We're not blind. My bestie snapped back at him, then pulled me to leave. But Chin Yan sidestepped her and grabbed my wrist, his eyes filled with urgency. I booked the room, yes. The woman in the room is named Yan Jing. She's my friend. But there's nothing more than that relationship. I held my breath, my eyes already blurry, but I refused to let the tears fall. Yunning. Chin Yan's gaze softened. He said he could explain anything I wanted to know. My bestie immediately got angry, asking what there was left to explain. Do you really think we're stupid? A man and a woman alone in a room. Everyone knows what could happen. If you truly cared about Yunning, you wouldn't have picked up that woman, let alone brought her to a hotel. Don't use friend as an excuse. My bestie coldly cut Chin Yan off, saying real friends wouldn't be so tactless. Asking a male friend to pick her up and book her a room. What? Does she not have hands? Or is she crippled? Chin Yan's brow furrowed. Surprising me, he didn't refute her immediately. Instead he said, "She is sick. It's a bit inconvenient." She also notified other friends. I was just the closest. Hearing this, I'd lost the will to argue any further. Pushing past my bestie, I looked at Chin Yan and said word by word, "Fine. Then I'll only ask you one thing. You say she's sick. Sick with what?" Neither the photo Zhou Chengyu sent nor what I saw with my own eyes made that woman look particularly ill. Chin Yan looked back at me, his lips moving slightly. Chin Yan, if you dare say it, I'll kill you." Suddenly, a roar came from the hotel elevator area. I turned in surprise and saw Yan Jing, the one Chin Yan called his friend. Pale-faced, she was standing hunched over at the elevator entrance. That shout immediately energized the already buzzing lobby. The front desk staff and a few other service people were all sneakily watching the drama, eyes gleaming. My bestie and I exchanged a glance, suddenly unsure how to proceed. Chin Yan's first love wasn't quite what I'd imagined. Aren't they usually supposed to be delicate, soft and teary? Why was this woman, even while sick, still yelling with such vigor? Just as I was about to say something, Yan Jing walked towards us. But her walking posture was oddly strange. Chin Yan frowned and asked her why she'd suddenly come down. "Good one, Chin Yan. Not even pretending anymore, are you?" Seeing this, my bestie spat out a curse, pulled me, and tried to leave. But Chin Yan stopped me again, his expression helpless. "She has a severe case of..." "Chin Yan, don't you dare say it. Hemorrhoids." As the words fell, the surroundings fell into dead silence. I never, ever expected things to develop to this point. The second Chin Yan said it, everyone in the hotel lobby stared at Yan Jing, and Yan Jing's delicate little face instantly drained of color. Then in the next second, flashed bright red. I pressed my lips together tightly, gripping my bestie's hand hard. Our eyes met, and we both saw sympathy in each other's gaze. Sensing the increasingly awkward atmosphere, I coughed lightly and pushed Chin Yan. "Should you go help her?" Chin Yan shook his head decisively, saying he was never getting involved in anyone else's business again. "I'm sorry. I should have been honest from the start. I made you feel bad." No. I waved my hands repeatedly, signaling him to go help her quickly. Otherwise, I felt Yan Jing might spit blood and fall to the ground any second. Just as I thought that, I heard a thud not far away. Damn, she actually fainted. An hour later, at the hospital, Chin Yan and I sat outside the inpatient ward entrance, exchanging silent glances. Yan Jing had already been taken into the operating room. They said her condition was rather complicated and would take some time. Chin Yan had wanted to ask other friends to look after her so he could leave first. I didn't agree and stayed with him. Consider it, well, a small compensation to Yan Jing. She really didn't know Chin Yan was pursuing me. When she came back, she'd notified all their friends. Chin Yan only went because others kept urging him. Neither of us expected it to turn into such a mess. Hesitating for a moment, I pretended to be upset, saying he should have told me earlier. "I'm not that petty, I could have gone with you." Chin Yan paused for half a second, saying he thought it was better to avoid trouble where possible. "What do you mean? Avoid trouble where possible? If you'd explained your reasons to me, would I really not have understood?" Chin Yan said that wasn't what he meant. "I just know you tend to overthink. So I didn't want you to get upset over something so trivial. Originally, I was planning to leave after getting her to the hotel. I didn't expect you two to be downstairs." Then he suddenly furrowed his brows and asked how I knew which hotel he'd booked. His accusatory tone immediately irritated me. Suppressing my anger, I told him not to worry, that I hadn't been investigating him. His brow furrowed deeper as he stared at me silently for a few seconds. It wasn't until a nurse passed by, breaking the silence, that he spoke again. "Yunning, can you trust me a little more? You're blaming me for not trusting you." I turned to look at him, my anger flaring. I said, "Then you need to do things that deserve my trust." He pressed his lips together and stayed silent. I suddenly felt like laughing. "Fine," I said. "It's my fault. I shouldn't lack a sense of security. Shouldn't doubt you. Then go find someone who will trust you." With that, I got up and left. But after only 2 steps, I found myself pulled into an embrace. "I'm sorry." Chin Yan held me tightly, his voice trembling slightly. He said he was sorry. It was all his fault. He shouldn't have been so stubborn. Shouldn't have been so arrogant, thinking I should trust him without explanation. Shouldn't have taken it upon himself, assuming I was too sensitive and not telling me beforehand. And shouldn't have doubted me, interrogated me. When Yunning, he took a deep breath, speaking each word clearly by my ear. I admit my mistakes. I'll change them all. Don't leave. Suddenly my tears broke through the dam. The resentment I'd been holding dissolved, leaving only a trace of guilt and an overwhelming sense of gratitude. I knew very well this couldn't be entirely blamed on Qin Yan. Without Zhou Chengyu's push, it probably wouldn't have escalated to this point. At this moment, I was incredibly grateful Qin Yan had come after me. Closing my eyes, I turned and hugged him tightly. Qin Yan, let's be together. When Yan Jing was wheeled out of the operating room, I was pinned against the wall by Qin Yan, being kissed. Lying face down on the transfer bed, she stared at us in shock, as if to say, "Can you two have any conscience at all?" The nearby doctor also wore a subtle expression, quickening the pace of pushing the bed. For once, my face flushed with embarrassment as I hastily pushed Qin Yan away. "Your friend's out, aren't you going to see her?" "See her? What's there to see?" Qin Yan glanced indifferently toward the ward. Besides, with her condition, if I said I wanted to go in and see her, she'd probably freak out. With that, he took my hand and pulled me away. "Don't worry. I've already notified another friend. He should be happy to take care of her." By the time we left the hospital, it was already late at night. Qin Yan drove me home. On the way, I received another message from Zhou Chengyu. He said he was waiting for me downstairs at my place, and to let him know when I was almost home. He also added a consolation, telling me not to be too upset, that the jerk wasn't worth my sadness. He probably still thought I'd caught Qin Yan cheating at the hotel. Snorting inwardly, I switched off my phone directly. He certainly wasn't like this when we broke up. Back then, I was so heartbroken I couldn't sleep night after night. Sometimes I thought it was my fault that I wasn't good enough, didn't deserve him. Other times I thought it was his fault that he just didn't care about me enough. In the end, I placed the blame on myself, because even if we weren't together, I still wanted him to have a good future. Looking back now, I must have been out of my mind back then. Breaking up with him was the best decision I ever made. Soon, the car pulled up outside my building. The moment Qin Yan spotted the figure by the roadside, he understood, and his expression immediately darkened. "You wait in the car. I'll go down. I'm coming with you." I grabbed Qin Yan's arm, signaling him not to be impulsive. "I still have something to say to him." "What's there to say?" "No way." Qin Yan was visibly jealous, his lips almost pouting. It was rare to see him like this, and I couldn't help but laugh. Annoyed, Qin Yan pulled me close by the nape of my neck and kissed me. When he finally pulled back, he even bit my lip lightly. His actions made my heart flutter, yet I also felt a sweet warmth. Being in a relationship does have its perks. All right. I won't say anything. I'll prove it with actions, okay? Having finally appeased Qin Yan, I got out of the car with him. And the moment he saw me, Zhou Chengyu's face turned distinctly green. Standing under the streetlight, he looked particularly bright. I couldn't hold back my laughter, thinking to myself, didn't see this coming. Did you piece of trash? Zhou Chengyu, thank you. If it weren't for you, Qin Yan and I probably wouldn't have gotten together so quickly. With that, I smiled at Qin Yan, rose slightly on my toes, and kissed the corner of his mouth. But before I could pull back, he pressed his hand against the back of my head, deepening the kiss. I let out a muffled memph, acutely aware of the piercing stare from nearby. When we finally separated, Zhou Chengyu was so angry he couldn't speak. You guys double quotes. You know why you're such a failure. Qin Yan looked at him coldly, uttering a single phrase. Because you're useless. You're arrogant, conceited, unfeeling, and self-righteous. You never see the good in others. You just want everyone to revolve around you. Qin Yan said contemptuously. What do you think you are? A merry-go-round? You're not even worthy. With that, he pulled me away and left. When we reached my apartment door, Qin Yan consciously stopped. Go on in. Next time, I'll properly visit your mom and them. I murmured an acknowledgement but didn't move. Qin Yan didn't move either, just gazed at me steadily, as if waiting for something. For some reason, I felt shy, and asked him what he was waiting for if he wasn't leaving. Aren't you going to kiss me goodnight? Chin Yan licked his lips slightly, his gaze becoming even more alluring. My blood rushed to my head and I kissed him immediately. His faint composure instantly crumbled as he pulled me close, kissing me deeply. But just as we were in the middle of our sweet, inseparable moment, a noise came from the corner. Then my brother stumbled out of the corner with a lurch. Whoa! The next second, my parents emerged awkwardly from behind him, following along. Well, you two continue. Zhao Qin, go on, keep holding her, we didn't see anything. The night was bright with moonlight, and I covered my face in embarrassment. But a light chuckle came from above. Chin Yan raised his hand to encircle my waist, his gaze sincere. Well then, I guess it's time to meet the parents.